Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulih al-Kareem. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. Wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum. I speak to you today as a Muslim brother, as a parent, a neighbor, a concerned citizen. And indeed, everything that we're searching for, all the answers that we are looking for in life, we'll find in our religion, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in the answers provided to us in the Quran and Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The topic for today is the following: safeguarding our faith in the information age, protecting our youth from the dangers of internet and social media. This is a mouthful, so let me read it again. Safeguarding our faith in the information age, protecting our youth from dangers of the internet and social media. And we pride ourselves in all the technological advances that we have made, but a society to a considerable extent and perhaps more than ever before suffers the following problems. Despite being very, very connected, almost to a moment-to-moment basis, many people find themselves very isolated and lonely, with loss of self-esteem. Anxiety and depression are exceptionally prevalent. Suicide rates are substantial. Conflicts with parents is nearly universal, as if that is the normal paradigm of how parents and children should behave. There's bullying, clearly in the schools, in the hallways, and on the internet, whether it be chat rooms and whatnot, with dire consequences sometimes, as you know. There's poor performance at school, and the United States, as you probably already know, ranks amongst the worst in the world in developed countries in their academics. There's violence, and that needs little introduction, that topic, unfortunately, and especially violence against women. So these are some serious problems in our times. And a concerned parent, of course, has a greater sensitivity to all these things. And as parents, at least, I can say there's a sneaky suspicion that some of this has to do with the profound technological changes that our society has undergone through in the last few decades. Now, when you say something like that, people are concerned. Some people say, you're anti-technology or something like that. But you have to understand, technology is important. But too much of something can be very bad for you. Like food, for example. Food is essential for life. But too much food causes obesity and all the complications of it. Heart disease, strokes, and etc. Now, somebody has pneumonia. Antibiotics is good for them. Well, one antibiotic is good. That means 20 must be better, right? No. So you have to put technology in the proper context. Not all of it being bad. There's great technology that facilitates healing, for example, in the medical profession. But there are limits to technology. You have to put it in a social context. And some technology is quite harmful if it goes unchecked. So, and there's a lot of temptations in technology. Kids love it. Our children love it. But it's like this. If you show a box of candy to a child like this, and a nice little candy over here, a little nice, it's even heart-shaped, which child would not be tempted to, just put out their hand and just take it and just eat it? It's like that. Technology for them is like that candy. Irresistible almost. But what if I told you somebody had laced that candy with some unknown substance that's potentially poisonous? What would you do then? Right? Parents have warned their children forever. Be careful. Don't take candy from strangers. Yet we allow our children to take candy from strangers every day. So we have to be very, very careful in how we perceive technology. So this talk is about technology. Long time ago, well, it was like nearly about 200 years when Henry David Thoreau, American writer, philosopher, abolitionist, and basically all-around good guy. Henry David Thoreau warned us. He was concerned. See, people have been concerned about technology for a very long time. This was in the midst of American Industrial Revolution. So Henry David Thoreau said, men have become tools of their tools. Men have become tools of their tools. In other words, for example, you see somebody, they have like their next big, whatever phone, fancy phone, and, whatever, i57 or whatever they have. And then, they're so obsessed with it, they can't live without it. Now, who owns that phone? Is it the person that's owning the phone, or is the phone owning the person? So that's what Henry David Thoreau is cautioning us. He's cautioning us, be careful how much you get involved with technology. Now, that's back then. There's another subtle message in this statement. Now, see, if there's opportunity cost to everything, he's saying that if you use technology too much, then you're missing something. You're missing out on something else in life. Right? You can't get too involved with something and then not expect to miss out on something else. And clearly, that's something else that you and I would be missing is something worth having. There's something worth being careful about. Right? So we miss out on stuff. And what is it that we miss out? We should ask ourselves. So I have divided this talk into two parts. The first part is how technology shapes social interactions. How technology shapes social interactions. So there are different types of technology. Technology that is in a kitchen, a toaster. The toaster's technology. And really, the toaster doesn't even compare to the social effects than an iPhone or a Galaxy, whatever, right? So there are different types of technologies: cars, there's toasters, and microwave, but the technology that really directly influences social interactions, how people interact with each other, are very, very powerful because they shape the way human beings interact with one another. So there are different types of technologies. And the technology that is directly involved with human social interactions are the most important ones for consideration. So the first part is how technology shapes social interactions. The second part of the talk is how changes in family structure in the last 100+ years has facilitated technology's hold on the society. So it's very difficult to understand the full effect of technology in a society without concurrently understanding what family structures changes have occurred and how that has facilitated technology's hold in a society. So that's the second part. So we should deal with this individually. We shall. So the first part: how technology shapes social interactions. See, I like to illustrate one very basic fundamental point here. Specifically, you have to understand that even minor changes in technology can have profound effect on a society. Even minor changes in technology can have very profound changes on society. To illustrate this, I'm going to do a brief review here. Now look, for a very long time, Europe was in the Middle Ages, or sometimes less politely called the Dark Ages. So let's be generous and call it the Middle Ages. For a very long time, Europe was in the Middle Ages. Nothing was happening in Europe. In other words, if you were to go to Europe and visit a village that's in 500 Common Era, it would look in a certain way. If you go back there again 100 years later, it would look the same. And then 100 years later, it would look the same. All the way up to over here. But if you come start in the Renaissance and in the Industrial Revolution, go back there, you wouldn't recognize it. So profound changes started to occur with the Renaissance in Italy, etc., and then all the Europe, starting with the Industrial Revolution. So, but for a very long time, Europe here was in the Middle Ages, stagnant, so to speak, from technological point of view. Okay, and some early changes, some late changes in the Middle Ages resulted in technological innovations. But look, this is the Muslim empire, so to speak, the Muslim rule. As you know, after the Prophet ﷺ, Islam spread very quickly, and geographically it occupied a very large area like this. Okay, very quickly this by 750 Common Era. Now, that was there. So Islam's climax, Islam's glorious ages were very early over here, right? But all this time still Europe was in Dark Ages, so to speak, or the Middle Ages, until three innovations occurred. Now mind you, this is a very simplistic appreciation of the situation, and I don't claim that you can simplify history in this way, but allow me the liberty. But the three key innovations occurred. One innovation late in the Middle Ages was somewhere, I think, 12th century or so, the invention of a steel tip plow, a plow with a steel tip. Seems very simple, actually, but it's pretty creative in a way, because it allowed the farmer to dig deeper into the roots in the ground. So it allowed more land that was previously could not be cultivated to be cultivated. So steel tip plow was very important. Nearly about the same time, the horse collar was invented. See, it's very difficult to put a collar on the horse because of a horse's anatomy. You would choke the horse. So it had to actually be a real creative individual who actually came up with a horse collar, right, so that it doesn't choke the horse. See, compared to a horse, look at the anatomy of the cow is very different. It's easier to put a yoke on the cow. But the horse is a much more efficient way of plowing than the cows, slow animals, right? So now they had two innovations, steel tip plow and a horse collar. Along with it, they came up with crop rotation, the 1/3 three-step crop rotations. In other words, they would leave 1/3 of their land fallow, and before then it would be like half and half. This allowed more land to be used for farming. Okay, 3 crop rotation like this. So 3 innovations: the steel tip plow, the horse collar, and the 3-field rotation. So each of this little technological innovation by themselves didn't amount to much, but if you put them together, they gave the European farmer a distinct advantage. So this resulted in greater production, crop production, and surplus. And as people have surplus, they have to work less, and they had more free time. And they had more free time. They had time to develop crafts and skills. And markets developed. Towns grew. And when towns grew and markets developed, people, they trade their stuff. So trade increased and travel increased. And where would European merchants travel to? Of course, they would travel to the greatest empire of the time, the Muslim world. So they traveled to the Muslim world. From the Muslims, they learned all the stuff that the Muslims had been working on, algebra, the advances they made in shipping and astrolabe and all of that. And they learned a lot. And that gave them an opportunity, subsequently, starting from here in the Renaissance and Industrial Ages, to go and conquer the world, so to speak. But all of this started with some basic, simple technological innovations. So this is to illustrate that even minor technological innovations can have very profound effect. Now, as I said already, you cannot really simplify history like this, but it makes us think, and at least I like for you to think, the next time you have like a new phone, new gadget, you can say, wow, well, this is so cool, but perhaps you should pause and think. What does this really do for me? What's the value in this? Yes, you can text, but what's the value of the text? What's the content of the text? Right? So we should think. At least that's what Henry David Thoreau would want you to do, to think. Okay, that was the first point. From here on, unfortunately, here's the history. The printing press was invented in 1450 or so, and the credit usually goes to Gutenberg. Gutenberg invented the printing press, and all of a sudden, in a generation's time, educated all of Europe. MashaAllah. It's very good. Educated all of Europe. And then, the next great technological innovation that had profound influence in the history was the telegraph. The telegraph, I think 1837 or so, Samuel Morse. See, with the telegraph, you could communicate very quickly from one very part of the world to a very different part of the world very fast. In fact, when Samuel Morse was supposed to have invented telegraph, now he said, a gentleman can now instantaneously speak with a gentleman in Maine can now instantaneously communicate with a gentleman in Texas. To this, apparently, Emerson is supposed to have said, Emerson, the mentor of Thoreau, a mentor, a friend of Thoreau, a philosopher, a thinker, is supposed to have said, but what does a gentleman in Maine have to say to a gentleman in Texas? Yes, they can talk to each other, but what can they talk about? What do they have in common? You can text to people from different parts of the world, but what is it you're going to talk about? What is the content of that conversation? Where is that going? Right? So this is how intelligent people, like of those times, they were concerned. What would a telegraph do to a society? Did you think about that? He says. What did the telegraph do? See? Before the telegraph, all the local newspaper would have pertinent news that you could use. Like, okay, somebody's selling their horse, or, so the Farmer Joe's barn burnt down, so they're collecting money for Farmer Jones to rebuild his barn or something like that. So the newspapers were filled with pertinent news. But after the telegraph, sensational news from far away came over here. Prince Henry, whatever's had a baby or whatever. But really, who cares about Prince Henry's baby? If Prince Henry had, met you on the street, he wouldn't care to talk to you. But that is the content of the news. So the invention of the telegraph resulted in profound changes in the discourse of the people. They were getting news from everywhere, and the news became very sensational. And that's really the start of the entertainment industry. And then came the television, of course, became very popular in the 1930s. And then, of course, television's little brother, the internet. Now this, as you know, with that, I didn't have to comment on it at all, this has really changed the way people interact with each other. Okay? So now, that was to suggest that you have to understand technological changes can have very profound effect in the society. One more example I like to give before I move on is, the invention of cars. The invention of cars, you would agree that it actually clearly changed the way society looked. But it also changed the way society worked, because when a person has a car, they can get a job farther from where they live, right? And then people start moving to suburbs, people start moving here and there. So the society spread, people could live farther. Before society spread like that, children would grow up with their grandparents, their cousins, their aunts and uncles. It was an extended family environment. But as people started to move, the nuclear family became a very prominent aspect of society. So technology does have very profound effects in the way people live and interact with one another. Now, of particular concern, as I suggested, a toaster is not the same thing as a phone. Of particular concern for technology, the technology doesn't affect the way we interact with other individuals. And particularly here, we were talking about television, the internet, and the social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and other social media outlets, and mobile phones, or the so-called, I really have to put that in quotes, the so-called smartphones. That's truly euphemism of the greatest inaccuracy. Nevertheless, so that's the technology we're talking about. These are very, very powerful technology. The idea is to how we understand how they actually affect us. So what are the negative effects of internet and social media? What do they do to us? Okay, I think I should enumerate to 5 over here. 1, it creates a culture of entertainment. It creates a culture of entertainment. So the technology such as internet and TV, so they are so entertainment based. The society becomes a culture of entertainment. See, TV has been around for a long time. Sitcoms have been around for a long time. After a while, the usual recipes for shows are used up. So people have to come up with some crazy ideas. People, in fact, have to come up with some very bizarre ideas to capture the attention of people. So after the usual recipes are used up, the entertainment industry has to come up with novel ideas, ideas that are at the fringe or extremes of society. They become the center stage of society entertainment, and that results in erosion of moral values. So, unfortunately, internet and social media have contributed considerably to creation of a culture of entertainment. I'd like to share a story here with you. Ray Bradbury wrote a great book, Fahrenheit 451. It's a common high school read, Fahrenheit 451. This book is a story about a futuristic society in his time, and he wrote this book in 1954 is when it was published. In the days of black and white television, mind you. In the days of black and white television, he wrote this book. And this is a book about a futuristic society where people are addicted to entertainment. The main character, the protagonist of this story, the main character is a gentleman named Montag. He's a fireman. Except firemen of this society, they don't fight fires because they don't have fires anymore. Firemen in this society go and find books and burn books because books are banned in this society. Books are banned. So Montag, the hero of the story, is a fireman that goes and finds and burns books which are illegal. Okay. It was also made into a movie. And his wife is a typical citizen of this society. She's addicted to entertainment. And their television, mind you, this is from Ray Bradbury. Their television in this society is like the whole wall. The whole wall is the television. And his wife has a television room where 3 sides of the room are walls. The entire wall is a television. 3 sides of it. And she sits in the middle of this room, constantly interacting with this TV. And in this television, she can interact with the TV like a virtual show. It's quite amazing that Ray Bradbury was able to foresee something like that. So she has created a virtual family with her television. In fact, she's more attached to this virtual family than she's attached to her husband. So when her husband walks into the house, forget getting up and saying salam, she doesn't even acknowledge the fact that her husband walked into the house. I mean, you should really think about that. Right? So, now what's the big deal about watching a little bit of TV, you said? What's the big deal? You mean like, oh my God, you don't watch TV? No, it's not. Listen, what's the big deal about watching? No, too much of anything. And you have to be careful of what you subject yourself to, right? In this society, mind you, Ray Bradbury was not just any author. He had great insight into human character. In this society, Montag's wife is suicidal. And she takes too many pills at one time. They have to come in and resuscitate her, and she doesn't have no memory of the fact that she actually took too many pills. And you have to be really, really, really careful. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing that internet and social media do is that they place emphasis on the visual. Reading skills decline. So television is very visual media. Teachers frequently decry, the entertainment part aspect of entertainment. Even education is very difficult to do because you have to make everything entertaining for kids for them to learn and nowadays. So it places emphasis on the visuals, so there's a decline in reading. The reading skills are so poor. Newspaper presently, apparently, I understand the newspaper, not many people read anymore anyways, are written at 8th grade reading level. 8th grade reading level, and a third of the college students can't make sense of a newspaper story because they don't have enough knowledge. That's college students. So a society that can read yet does not read is functionally illiterate. I mean, people can read, and why do we send our kids to go to school? So that they can grow up and be able to read their menus or the light bill? Really? No. Gandhi had said to something to the effect, says, literacy has never been the end or even the beginning of education. We don't send our schools to be able to read. We send them to school to become educated in thinking human beings. So a society that can read yet does not read is functionally illiterate. Okay? Third, negative effects of internet, TV, social media. Children begin to see the world of the adults as chaotic, violent, and perverse. Look, a person's perception of reality is based on their focus. A person's perception of reality is based on their focus. If children's perception of reality is from what they get from YouTube videos and television, they see the world of the adults as chaotic, violent, perverse. And why would they respect the world of the adult? Why would they respect the adult? Period. So children don't respect the adults. They don't respect authority. We wonder, right? How do we expect them to, and otherwise, right? So the children, they don't see all of this in some context. They don't understand that these things that are shown on television or YouTube video, they are actually not what usually happens in society. Those are the fringes of society, but it facilitates a new paradigm, the concept of reality for them. So they don't respect adults or their parents, right? And fourthly, it creates a certain intellectual arrogance among children, right? It creates certain intellectual arrogance among children because the kids, our present generation kids, they know more than their parents do about the technology. They're more comfortable with the technology than the parents are, right? So the child says, "Oh my God, my parents are stupid. They don't know anything. They don't know how to use this technology." And because of this culture of arrogance, it compromises parents' ability to mentor and nurture their child. How do you nurture and mentor a child if the child doesn't respect you? Right? So it creates a certain intellectual arrogance. See, I tell kids, I know 1,000 things and you know 1,000 things, but there are different 1,000 things. Which 1,000 things are important? No. Not all knowledge is useful knowledge. Some knowledge is more useful than other knowledge. Our Messenger ﷺ taught us to pray to protect us from knowledge that is useless. So, subhanAllah, our Messenger ﷺ, Allah has given us everything that we need. Really, we have everything that we need in the Quran and Sunnah. Finally, the internet and social media, they promote promiscuity. Humongous problem among children. Really, parents, we are given responsibility of our children. They're under care for a certain period of time. And for the first few years, they're in their diapers, for God's sake. For that 10, 12-year period of time, we have to be really dedicated to our children and make the time that we need to help them with these challenging issues. We can't be absent from the very critical aspect of their times, of their life. So, in summary, these are 5 ways that this social technology has profoundly affected our society. 1, It's created a culture of entertainment. 2, it has resulted in a decline in reading. 3, it has resulted in a loss of respect for adult society and history in general. 4, there's a loss of respect for parents and authority in general. And 5, it has promoted promiscuity. In the next part, inshallah, after a brief pause, I'm going to talk about how technology has actually become very oppressive for some people. Inshallah. Until then, as-salatu was-salamu ala alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum.